to have continuously feedback so that we can adjust our laws to look at emerging issues. Let me turn to Collin Rule. Over to you, Collin, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted and honored to be on this panel with my distinguished co-panelists. I'd like to acknowledge Judge Westerfeld as one of our top neutrals in the United States. Just to make a comment in connection to the discussion of how dispute resolution has evolved in Europe and the United States. In my experience, the United States often leads with the private sector, and then abuses are then reined in by the public sector, whereas in Europe, oftentimes the public sector leads the charge and the private sector follows. So there are definitely pluses and minuses to each approach. And as Judge Westerfeld noted, we have had some recent activity, particularly around egregious abuses like the Weinstein cases or some of the overstepping that's occurred with these pre-dispute binding arbitration processes that I think are being reined in. But it is an honor to be here with all of you. I will echo also my appreciation for Dr. Nudrat Piracha, who's one of my inspirations in terms of her vision, in terms of the work that she's done in Pakistan. Again, you have a wonderful gift that she is there leading the charge. And this week, actually next week, I will be presenting to the newest class of Weinstein Fellows at the JAMS headquarters in San Francisco. And I know that Nudrat is one of the alums of that prestigious program. So thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. And yes, best wishes to everyone impacted for the floods, by the floods, and hopefully they'll get on their feet again soon. Let me speak in particular about my expertise, which is online dispute resolution. I know that this is something that ADR Center and my good friends in Italy have led the charge on as well, thinking about how technology can improve the reach and effectiveness of dispute resolution. I will share some quick slides as well. So let me share this here. And hopefully you are all seeing a slide that says the rise of online dispute resolution. Great. So what I'd like to primarily address is the fact that dispute resolution around the world is moving inexorably online. I want to thank Adit's comments around the multi-door courthouse and the Pound Conference in the United States. You can see I have a picture here on my wall of Frank Sander, who's many consider one of the fathers of dispute resolution in the United States, who invented that concept of the multi-door courthouse. And one of the things that Frank talked about is fitting the forum to the fuss, trying to design dispute resolution processes, excuse me, that best meet the needs of disputants. And I think that is one of the reasons why technology is proving so transformational in the practice of dispute resolution around the world. When COVID hit, many mediators and arbitrators around the world felt that the dispute resolution process had to take place face-to-face. That was the only way for it to be conducted effectively. But the pandemic essentially isolated us and removed face-to-face interaction as a practical means of delivering dispute resolution services. And that was the first opportunity many of these neutrals had to use technology in their practice. And now that COVID, thankfully, seems to be pulling back, and many of the restrictions that were imposed during the pandemic are being removed, we are seeing the use of online dispute resolution not reduce. So we will never go back to the world the way it was in December 2019. I think the changes that have taken place are never going to go away. So what we have done studies at mediate.com and arbitrate.com in the United States that indicate that online interaction, in particular video conferences like this Zoom conversation, are now the default for mediation and arbitration, particularly commercial mediation and arbitration processes. And face-to-face is now the exception. And that's not to say it is online versus offline. I think it's going to be hybrids where processes will involve some aspect of technology and some aspect of online interaction, as well as some face-to-face interaction. But we are seeing the balance shift quickly in the direction of ODR, actually at a pace that would have been inconceivable prior to the pandemic. And this is because certainly dispute resolution is not the reason why technology is transforming society. Most of our parties now spend most of their days online in Zoom conferences, in email. They utilize tools like Gmail and Facebook and LinkedIn. So parties now expect to be able to use technology to resolve their cases quickly and fairly. And the point we have been making for many years, my first book, Online Dispute Resolution for Business, was published in 2002, so it's been about 20 years. But I think ODR and ADR are now clearly the same thing. And ODR is just ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution, plus technology. So the slides I'd like to share today just show a little bit about how this is working. The first point I'd like to make is online dispute resolution is already resolving many millions of disputes around the world. I was the director of online dispute resolution at eBay and PayPal, and we resolve more than 60 million disputes per year in that one website. And now I guarantee Amazon.com and Alibaba.com and other marketplaces around the world are resolving many more millions of disputes than that. So our estimates indicate there are more than 1 billion cross-border e-commerce disputes that need resolution. And the courts are not applicable to these disputes because you have parties that are in different countries, you have marketplaces that are in different countries, and you may even have items that are shipped out from another country. So trying to determine what jurisdiction applies is cost prohibitive. So the beauty of online dispute resolution is that it works the way the internet works. You don't have to worry about issues of jurisdiction or location because you can build the rules for resolution directly into the transaction itself. And of course, this is just an extension of Lex Mercatoria, which for more than 1,000 years has led to the creation of institutions like international arbitration, where you can resolve disputes that cross jurisdictions. But the internet does not care about borders. The internet any of us can pull out our phones, and with a few swipes, we can buy an item from another person anywhere in the world. So we need to build a justice system that works the way the internet works. And that justice system is going to resemble dispute resolution more than it resembles traditional judicial models, which are too tied to geography. And I could spend more than an hour talking about all of the examples of online dispute resolution happening around the world. The United Kingdom is launching something called Her Majesty's Online Court, which is an all-online process for resolving civil disputes less than £25,000. Our neighbor to the north, Canada, has innovated enormously in the area of online dispute resolution, and they have launched an online court called the Civil Resolution Tribunal, as well as China launching their internet courts in Hangzhou and Shanghai and Beijing that provide resolution services entirely online. India, of course, has launched an ODR system for digital payment disputes, and the government is now building a nationwide online dispute resolution system for resolving those cases. We all know about the long delays in the Indian civil courts, so this is a way to deliver resolutions in days, not months, not years. And the European Union adopted a regulation that requires all online businesses to deliver ODR, inform their customers about the availability of ODR services, and the EU launched its own intake form as well for ODR cases. International organizations have embraced online dispute resolution in a big way. UNCITRAL, which is the UN agency responsible for harmonizing global laws, had an online dispute resolution working group for many years and issued recommendations around how to deliver these cross-border resolutions via ODR. Now we see APEC, which is the treaty organization of all the countries that ring the Pacific, has launched an ODR mechanism for small and medium-sized business disputes, as well as the International Standards Organization is creating standards for cross-border ODR. So again, this is just a sample. There is ODRAfrica.com, there is ODRLatinoAmerica.com. I was just speaking the other day with ODR Japan. There are providers on every continent. At the website odr.info, we list all of the ODR providers around the world. There are more than 100 on our list. So ODR is growing fast, and technology is growing fast, and ODR moves at the pace of technology. So let's speak a little bit about what ODR looks like. There are certain components, and then I'm happy to join in with my fellow panelists for a discussion. But the notion of a dispute diagnosis or solution explorer that occurs before actual negotiation begins, this is something that ODR enables, which allows parties to go through and learn about their dispute, maybe receive an immediate resolution offer that could be algorithmic, powered by artificial intelligence or powered by business rules. So this helps parties understand their situation and then frame the ZOPA, the zone of potential agreement. And then once that intake is finished, we can open up online collaboration rooms where the parties can share documents. They can schedule meetings, be those video conference or phone-based meetings. They can interact asynchronously, where they can post messages and have caucus discussions in an attempt to resolve their dispute. And you can use algorithmic mechanisms to facilitate negotiated resolutions as well. All of these cases, as they are filed, enter into a case management system. And this case management system is where all of the information is centralized so that administrators can track cases and then assign neutrals appropriately for each case. So you can also see all of the details of the case and update them in real time, view the documents that have been uploaded, assign and remove neutrals and users to the case, and also create a workflow that has a whole cadence of future meetings. Again, be they video conference or face-to-face, all tracked within one central console. We also have the ability to automate communications between the parties. So you can send out emails on certain timelines, you can send out reminders, you can use text messaging and SMS as well. You can also manage all of the panelists. And the panelists can log in at any point, update their bios and training information. The parties can review the panelists. When a slate of panelists are proposed in a particular case, the parties can rank those panelists, so then the algorithm can decide which panelists have no conflicts and who are most desirable to the parties, and then they can be automatically assigned to the case. I'll also point out the beauty of online dispute resolution is we can glean a lot of data from these cases. And data is more important for the future of dispute resolution, even more than money, because data is what we will use to inform the algorithms, artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that will help us in the future triage these cases and organize these cases and potentially even decide some low-value cases. In the online dispute resolution field, we talk about the third party and the fourth party. The first two parties, party one and party two, are the disputants. The third party is the human neutral, the mediator or arbitrator. But the fourth party is the algorithm. And as computers become more powerful, essentially computer processors double in power every 2 years. As computers become almost unimaginably more powerful as we introduce quantum computing and other dynamics, we are going to see the emergence of the fourth party as a very powerful and efficient way for parties to get understanding about their case, understand their BATNA and WATNA, their best alternative and their worst alternative to a negotiated agreement, and then potentially even have an algorithm mediate or arbitrate their cases. So I could go on more about this, but I'm very eager to hear from my fellow panelists. I'm very excited about the progress being made in Pakistan around the development of alternative dispute resolution, and we are eager to support in the global online dispute resolution field your efforts as we move forward. So let me stop my comments, and I will leave it there.
Thank you, Collin. Thanks for that very interesting presentation. I think as we move into the world of global trade shifting online, I think it's just natural that some form of dispute resolution should also move online. And I think it's very interesting that we may move to an era when perhaps there's a bot trying to do ADR rather than human. I just wonder how far we are from.
I'm sorry,
from,
sir.
from
You appear to be on mute, so I can't hear your comments.
Oh, you can't hear me. I don't know why.
There we go.
Okay.
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for saying. I was just saying that I enjoyed your presentation because, you know, it just demonstrates that as trade moves online, then it's quite natural that dispute resolution should also move online without all the fetters of jurisdictional issues which we have when you're just working terrestrially as opposed to cyberspace. And I was saying that I just wonder how far we are, given how quantum computing is coming and so on, where actually the online judge might just be something in cyberspace as opposed to human. But I guess that'll take some time. So thank you for that great presentation and appreciation of what's going on in cyberspace. It's my privilege now to invite Vic Schachter, to give some concluding remarks on international experiences, best practice, and lessons learned. If Nudra does allow, I think we can perhaps, before we move to Vic, can we take a couple of questions? I think we've had some very interesting presentations from Turkey and the other presenters. Maybe just a couple of questions. Oh. Please. Can you come and... It's better just to speak here, okay. More efficient.
My question is to Mr. Rule. Thank you very much. It seems what you're doing is cutting edge stuff now. For a country like Pakistan, I assume your service and this ODR service is subscription based and a cost based. For a country like Pakistan, how cost effective? How can the same services be used in a more cost effective manner by us here? I mean, if you could give us some background into what sort of cost models you have in using the ODR, that'll be very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I will say I have done online dispute resolution work all around the world. And when I first started doing this work, computers were very expensive. A laptop cost $2,000 and an internet connection was incredibly expensive. And I had many people say to me, well, if you use technology to build a dispute resolution service, you're essentially only building dispute resolution for rich people, because only rich people have access to technology. And I think that was very true in the early 2000s. But what we've seen is access to technology has expanded enormously. And again, as I mentioned, one of my good friends, Mornike Obefurendi, is running ODR Africa. And we are launching ODR mechanisms in some of the poorest countries in the world, in sub-Saharan Africa. It's interesting to me, one of the big developments when I first started doing ODR was the invention of the mobile phone. And it's very interesting to me to look at the audience there in Pakistan today and see how many people have mobile phones. I would imagine most everyone in the audience. And again, people who do not have many economic means, they might not have the fanciest iPhone or the latest version, but they do have access to technology through phones. And access to the internet is growing quite quickly. So the first systems that were built for ODR were enormously expensive, and they were really only intended for commercial businesses because they could only afford it. But the beauty of ODR is now that it has been invented, those same tools can be applied in a wide variety of different contexts. And we are now using our ODR systems in circumstances where the services are essentially free to the disputants and in the developing world. So again, I think the cost is no longer prohibitive in terms of access. And as access to the internet grows and as mobile devices grow in their own sophistication, I think we will see the reach of dispute resolution systems expand. My good friend Richard Susskind, who is the chief IT advisor to the Lord Chief Justice in the UK, he wrote a book called Online Courts and the Future of Justice. And in that book, he says 50% of people on the planet do not have meaningful access to a justice system. And unfortunately, there's no way for us to improve that number if we rely only on face-to-face. Maybe we can get marginal improvements. But if this is the point of access to justice moving forward, if a mobile device in your hand can give you access to fast and fair resolutions, That is a model where we can expand access to justice to 70, 80, even potentially 90% of people on the planet. Because technology, much like Zoom is enabling us to have this conversation between Silicon Valley and Pakistan. This would have been science fiction 10 years ago. And 10 years from now, the notion of providing resolution, fast and fair resolutions through a device like this may also come to pass. So I think that there are economic models, even in areas of the world where there's not that much not that many economic resources available, that we can roll out ODR in a meaningful way. So I'm sorry I didn't give you any concrete dollar numbers, but that's my response to your excellent question.
Thanks, Collin, for that.